Thank you for returning to our channel, where we discuss the latest news and unseen tales about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her family. We have some news for you today. Following Princess Anne's alleged warning to her, Camilla departs the UK in stealth. Recent reports have alarmed observers of the British monarchy since they imply that the House of Windsor is currently going through a serious internal crisis. Queen Camilla left the United Kingdom for an undisclosed place under circumstances that have raised a significant deal of mistrust among the general population, according to conflicting accounts. These accounts suggest that Camilla's private estate in Wiltshire, Mill House, was the scene of a triggering incident. The sources claimed that an unusually intense argument between Princess Anne and the Queen consort took place at a charity event. The Princess Royal allegedly accused Camilla of having a valuable heirloom that had belonged to the late Queen Elizabeth II, a charge that, if true, appealed to issues that went far beyond a single object and reactivated long-simmering tensions within the family, according to sources close to the household and those who were present. As a result, the event has raised some difficult questions regarding the monarchy's stability amid a particularly vulnerable period of transition. Camilla has been referred to as her private haven at Mill House for many years. She bought the house in 1996 following her split with Andrew Parker BS. Additionally, it is a unique setting when compared to the royal family's other residences, like Windsor Castle, Clarence House, and Buckingham Palace. Mill House has served as a private haven where family gatherings and sporadic public events involving Camilla's philanthropic endeavors and personal achievements have taken place. These official residences fulfill a variety of purposes, such as constitutional and ceremonial duties. It was used as the setting for her daughter Laura Lopes's wedding celebration in 2006, and as the background for an official portrait shot to mark Camilla's 75th special birthday. Camilla appeared to consider the estate as a representation of individual liberty and a special setting for everyday family life, apart from the constant formality and scrutiny of official royal duties. At the same time, the general public viewed the estate as a perfect country retreat. According to reports, such peaceful exchanges were abruptly and significantly disrupted during what was supposed to be a routine humanitarian operation. According to reports, this happened during the event. The workers and guests, who had been notified in advance, had been given a regular program that included remarks, pictures, and light conversation. Instead, witnesses reported that the incident was the cause of an extremely distressing family dispute, an incident that occurred when Camilla and Princess Anne entered a room together and were immediately immersed in a furious fight was recounted by individuals who were there. They were at a breaking point in their tensions. Royal commentators have traditionally characterized Anne and Camilla's relationship as being driven more by duty and respect for one another than by warmth. Some who were present, however, claimed that the dispute went much beyond the usual aloofness that occasionally characterizes formal interactions between senior royals. According to some who attended, Princess Anne's voice, which is typically known for being direct, stood in stark contrast to the polite mood that pervaded the gathering. According to reports, she confronted Camilla directly and accused her of having a valuable personal and symbolic object at Mill House that was in Camilla's private possession rather than in the custody of the official royal collection. The object was described in these accounts as one of the late Queen Elizabeth II's most treasured possessions. The facts of the artifacts transfer from official possession and subsequent installation in a private property were supposedly urgently explained by the Princess Royal. This means that the dispute was not just about who owned a certain item. It also covered matters of appropriate custody and the preservation of artifacts associated with a monarch's historical legacy. It is said that Queen Camilla was clearly upset when she was faced with a straightforward and well-known claim. According to the people there, she tried to defuse the situation by trying to speak with her sister-in-law in private. She took this action because she knew that a charity event would be seen by more people than only the home's staff thanks to social media and the media. According to people engaged in the matter, Camilla was reportedly trying to keep the subject out of the ears of guests so as not to humiliate the Princess Royal. Princess Anne's rage does not appear to have lessened in spite of this. She reportedly became increasingly vehement about her position. What should have been a private family dispute turned into a semi-public censure as her voice grew louder and more forceful. It is stated that the conflict evidently reached its climax with a highly personal and piercing statement. In words that have been frequently used in later narratives, Princess Anne is reported to have claimed that Camilla would never be regarded as a true queen in her own eyes, as well as in the eyes of people who place a high value on tradition. This statement bears the weight of a long-running argument about legitimacy, appropriateness, and the limits of royal position in addition to the weight of a personal criticism. A categorical repudiation is one that questions the core beliefs and legitimacy of a high-ranking royal official, rather than just criticizing a specific act. In order to keep the two women apart and limit the visibility of the talk, royal security personnel decided to step in and intervene. Reports state that a royal security guard stepped in to keep the conflict from getting any hotter and to keep the parties apart. Nevertheless, sources claim that Princess Anne remained firm enough to give Camilla a final, severe order that she should never handle anything that had belonged to her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, again. After giving this order, Princess Anne is reported to have left the room abruptly, leaving the audience stunned into silence and an atmosphere full of awkwardness and worry. The problem became even more complicated when Prince William, the Prince of Wales, was present. He is said to have been told about the disturbance by one of his employees, and he is also accused of entering the room just as the argument was ending. His interaction with his stepmother was brief and low-key, according to observers. He reportedly spoke with Queen Camilla for little to no time before departing the scene in less than a minute. Commentators described his manner as somber and solemn. Although he did not appear visibly angry, he was nevertheless restrained. Those watching were further alarmed by the quickness and aloofness of his response. It raised concerns about where allegiances might have been drawn during that critical period and implied that there might have been potentially unpleasant relationships among senior family members. The charity function followed a predetermined timetable despite the disturbance. In spite of this, visitors later commented that the atmosphere had changed. A wary quiet had replaced the laid-back environment that had existed before, and there was a clear sense that something significant had happened. King Charles was made aware of the resulting altercation, and people who were close to him described his attitude as growing more determined as he became aware of the details. As has long been standard royal practice, a tacit cloud of caution quickly descended upon the event. The visitors and servants were both implicitly aware that the subject should not be brought up in public. However, trustworthy sources asserted that the damage was already done. Princess Anne's accusations, which were made violently and in a setting where there was a high chance of public awareness, lingered in people's minds and suggested that there might be a serious rift among the monarchy's leading members. Those who were not present might have thought the event at Raymil House was unexpected. But according to royal historians and others who understand family dynamics, it was in many ways the climax of tensions that had been accumulating for decades. Princess Anne and Queen Camilla's relationship is frequently described as having been shaped by a convoluted past of personal relationships, perceived slights, and essentially divergent temperaments and perspectives on royal duties. The relationship is frequently and accurately described in this way. According to some, these underlying conflicts date back to the early 1970s and are closely linked to Andrew Parker B.S.'s persona. Before marrying Camilla Shand in 1973, Parker B.S. had a romantic relationship with a young Princess Anne. As a result of their romance, which at the time garnered societal notice, Anne B.S. and Parker B.S. developed a lasting personal bond. It did not lead to marriage, but it did lead to marriage. Some bystanders believed that Anne's personal life, which was regarded as a private sphere, had been invaded when Camilla later married him. Many who have studied the relationships between Anne and Camilla have said that a steady stream of unease and unresolved feelings persisted beneath the surface for years. Even when the interactions between the two personas appeared to be courteous, this remained the case. The problem worsened when Camilla returned to play a significant role in Charles's life during his marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales, adding to his stress levels. Princess Anne, who has built her public persona on an unwavering commitment to duty, discipline, and the preservation of institutional integrity, saw and understood Camilla's later involvement in the collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage as a breach of manners and principle. Princess Anne has established her name on these values. Anne and those who agreed with her recognized that the association of Camilla with the breakdown of that marriage may potentially have a destabilizing effect on both the Princess of Wales's personal life and the royal household. However, some have viewed Camilla's plot as more murky, with some arguing that it is self-serving or that it is causing constitutional and reputational instability. This contrasts with Anne's plot, which has frequently been interpreted as a symbol of self-control and sacrifice. People's resentment of past incidents has never been confined to their private lives. One of the most significant events in the royal family's history in the second half of the 20th century was the scandal surrounding Charles and Camilla. the public's perception of the individuals involved was affected in a lasting way. The development of that memory was greatly aided by Diana's 1992 disclosures to Andrew Morton and her 1995 interview with Panorama. The straightforwardness of Diana's testimony, which included the witty remark, "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage," so it was a bit crowded, transformed suspicion into a powerful public narrative that portrayed Diana as the spouse who had been wronged and firmly established, Camilla's reputation in the popular imagination as the person who had snuck into the marriage. Following Diana's passing in 1997, Camilla was subjected to persistent animosity and mistrust in the years that followed. Camilla's efforts to integrate into public life and to redefine her place within the royal family were made more difficult by the cultural shade created by Diana's memory. Her every action was intensely scrutinized, and the cultural shadow formed by Diana's memory was a cultural burden. Even after she married Charles in 2005 and adopted the title of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla continued to face opposition from members of the public on whether or not she was suitable for a prominent role. She continued to be inextricably linked to the anguish and distress that characterized Diana's public story, particularly for many people. Given this historical context, it is easier to see why the heirloom that was purportedly discovered at Raymill House took on symbolic meaning that went much beyond the simple existence of an item that had been missing. Princess Anne, according to many who were there, interpreted the finding as a literal confirmation of a long-held belief. This conviction was a story that Camilla had at times seized roles, relationships, and symbols that others considered should have been appropriated elsewhere. According to their interpretation, the ownership of a valued artifact belonging to Queen Elizabeth II in a private residence, particularly one that was linked with Camilla's private life, was not a matter of administrative pettiness, but rather an insult to the memory of the Queen and to the institutional values that Anne held dear. In addition, the issue of title has been a source of contention that has persisted throughout time. During the Platinum Jubilee celebrations that took place in February 2022, the late Queen had made a public declaration of her sincere wish that Camilla be given the title of Queen Consort upon Charles's election as king. Her choice of phraseology, which was Queen Consort rather than just Queen, was generally viewed as a thoughtful calibration. It was a statement of Camilla's status as the spouse of the sovereign, but at the same time it maintained the linguistic boundary between a reigning sovereign and a consort. On the other hand, upon his ascension, King Charles made the choice to refer to his wife as Queen Camilla. Although this was a decision that was within his prerogative, it was one that some people regarded as veering from the careful subtlety that his mother had maintained. According to reports from palace insiders, Princess Anne was one of the most vociferous critics of that alteration. She saw it as an issue of devotion to the desires stated by the late Queen and to the proper conduct of the institution. Those conflicts were pushed into the open for a large number of people to see at the coronation that took place in May of 2023. In spite of the fact that the event was a time of national grandeur, it brought up complicated emotions and lasting resentments for a great number of people. The image of Camilla being crowned with Charles served as a clear reminder of the difficulties that preceded her elevation. It was a reminder of a troubled history that includes personal and constitutional ruptures. For certain members of the family and portions of the public, the sight of Camilla being crowned alongside Charles was a sharp reminder of its significance. Witnessing that crowning may have been a cause of significant emotional struggle for a person like Princess Anne, who has persistently stressed virtues connected with her mother's lengthy reign. It would have been the climax of a chapter that she had silently and at times aggressively opposed all throughout her life. The intensity of the outcry to the reported finding at Raymill House may be somewhat explained by the symbolic stakes included in the situation. The item was not only an object in this context. Rather, it was a tangible manifestation of complaints that had collected over the course of many decades. According to the stories, Princess Anne considered the fact that it was located on a private estate to be the final evidence of a recurrent suspicion that Camilla had crossed the lines that separated personal property and public heritage. The narrative of appropriation and moral violation has been a frequent feature in the public discourse around Camilla's existence and role in the family. This narrative has been a persistent topic of discussion. It is possible that Anne, who has often been portrayed as a defender of tradition, had a sense of affront to memory and institutional traditions when she discovered a valued relic of the late Queen at Camilla's residence during her visit. There has been a significant amount of disagreement among commentators in the aftermath of the conflict and the rumored departure of Camilla from the United Kingdom. There was a quick spread of photographs depicting the Queen boarding a private plane, and interpretations of her departure were in conflict with one another along party lines. Her choice to quit was seen by critics as an implied acknowledgement of wrongdoing or as an incapacity to endure public scrutiny. In other words, it was a retreat rather than a deliberate exit. According to this interpretation, there is a void at the center of the monarchy, which means that King Charles is responsible for carrying out official tasks while simultaneously handling a private issue that has public repercussions. Those who hold such criticisms believe that Camilla may not possess the stoic fortitude that is normally required of a senior royal, and the optics of her leaving lend credence to this notion. Supporters of Queen Camilla, on the other hand, claim that she has been exposed to an excessively severe and continuous campaign of condemnation that has been influenced by residual resentments and an environment of sensationalist media. They highlight her extensive history of public service, which includes her consistent funding for charitable organizations, her covert assistance to the king, and her consistent discharge of civic obligations. From their point of view, Camilla's attempts to acquire acceptance by low-key service and careful messaging were making progress. The Raymill House event, which was framed by opportunistic reporting, depicts an intensified family conflict that was blown up into a national issue. King Charles's personal health is a factor that makes the matter more complicated. As a result of the reports that he is now having treatment for cancer, the optics of internal division are extremely challenging. The royal household today displays an image that is tinged with conflict and disintegration, which is something that may be anticipated at a moment when a unified family front would be expected. As a result, the choice that the king made earlier to appoint Camilla as queen, which was widely understood as a gesture of personal allegiance, has been exposed to further examination. The question that has been asked is whether or not that decision prioritized private feeling above institutional cohesiveness and public consciousness. In what ways may a decision of this kind impact the king's authority and the efforts he makes to establish his reign on a foundation of consistent stewardship? The apparent misplacement of an object from the royal collection creates practical problems of provenance, record-keeping, and custody practices. These questions go beyond the difficulties that arise within the family. By establishing obligations for documenting, preserving, and lending things that are considered to be part of the national heritage, the Royal Collection Trust and museum experts who manage the care of royal objects have jointly created these tasks. The issue becomes administrative as well as symbolic in the event that an item that is officially a part of the royal collection is discovered in a private house. How did it get there? Were the appropriate processes followed? And is it possible to rectify any errors by returning the item and resolving any gaps that may have occurred? It is possible that such procedural concerns will need documentation, verification, and institutional explanation, even if the problem continues to be portrayed for the public as largely pertaining to the family relationships. Every nuance of the tale has been enhanced by the use of social media. After just a few hours had passed after the photographs and stories were published, opinion began to spread across many platforms. Both supporters and opponents of the narrative recycled previous versions of the story and offered other interpretations. Since there have been no rapid and thorough comments from the government, the information vacuum has been filled by rumors, conjecture, and interpretations that are biased against a certain political party. This dynamic, which involves the fast reframing of events through the prism of long-standing prejudices, makes the palace's conventional tactics of damage control more difficult to implement. These approaches depend on measured pronouncements and diplomatic maneuvering that is not overt. Discourse that is instantaneous and spreads like wildfire makes it more difficult for thoughtful account-giving to prevail. Additionally, it is probable that government officials are keeping an eye on the development. Despite the fact that constitutional tradition placed the monarch above politics and that the royal family maintains norms to prevent direct political involvement, the stability of the monarchy is important to the existence and identity of the country. There is a possibility that members of parliament, especially those who serve on committees that are involved with constitutional matters, may feel obligated to monitor developments for any potential ramifications that may arise for state events, the operation of the crown, or the management of historic institutions. Even in the event that the situation is legally considered to be a private family dispute, the fact that it is of such a public nature may prompt queries from the parliament or requests for attention to be paid to the custody arrangements for goods that are of national importance. It has been claimed that advisors are now considering several alternatives for a reaction inside the palace. These choices include carefully worded public remarks that are designed to ease fears, as well as private reconciliations that are intended to keep the conflict out of the media. Many people anticipate that first actions will place an emphasis on the personal and family character of the situation. The home has historically placed a high value on secrecy and repair work that is performed behind closed doors. But the longer uncertainty continues to exist, the more likely it is that conjecture will become more ingrained. In the short term, silence may help maintain closeness, but it can also cause reputational harm over time. On the other hand, a public reckoning that is both prompt and comprehensive has the potential to inflame tensions and provoke further scrutiny. For royal communications teams, one of the most common challenges is to strike a balance between those dangers. The decisions that Queen Camilla must make are difficult for her personally. The choice she must make is whether to stay away from the country for a lengthy amount of time, so enabling her fury to calm down and the focus of the media to lessen, or whether to return immediately and seek to make amends in both public and private settings. There is a possibility that a return will provide an opportunity for expressions of regret, explanations, or reconciliation, as well as the private effort that is necessary to restore ties within the family. If, however, a public return is not followed by a credible and open strategy to address the substantive problem at the core of the dispute, namely the origin of the artifact and the appropriateness of its custody, then it runs the danger of fanning the attention of the press and giving an opportunity for further discoveries. The events of this story bring to light wider problems about the link between private ownership and public heritage in the realm of royal governance. The possessions of the monarchy consist of a variety of personal things and artifacts that are a part of the royal collection, which is kept in trust for the country and for future reigns. When things shift between various categories, whether by mistake, agreement, or misunderstanding, it is vital to have procedures that are open and transparent, as well as paperwork that is well documented in order to avoid confusion and disagreement. It is possible that the Raymill House claim might be subject to procedural correction if it is determined that the claim is the result of an administrative mistake or a miscataloguing. In the event that it serves, however, as a symbolic affirmation of a narrative of appropriation, then the resolution will not only demand the completion of paperwork, but it will also require the reconciliation of feeling and memory. The public's response is likely to continue to be divided. For some people, the event serves as a reminder that organizations such as families must always work to connect their ideals with their actions, and that considerations of custodianship and respect for memory are important. As far as some people are concerned, this is only another instance of old debates being rehashed by an attention economy that lives on divisiveness. There is a possibility that the popularity ratings for the monarchy as a whole and for the king and the queen, consort in particular, may fluctuate in the next weeks according to polling research. In order to ensure the institution's durability, top members and advisors will need to demonstrate that they are able to successfully transform private mending into public comfort. Therefore, restoring a feeling of togetherness that is the foundation of symbolic legitimacy. By putting a focus on continuity and adjusting rights and public discourse to accommodate changing sensibilities, the monarchy has been able to weather various storms throughout its history. The question of whether or not such methods are capable of being implemented successfully in our day and age, which is characterized by immediate media cycles and increased demands of responsibility, remains in question. It is at this point that engaged people will be put to the test in terms of their personal capabilities to demonstrate repentance, to settle conflicts in a calm manner, and to recast narratives in a manner that will allow the institution to go ahead without surrendering its dignity. This is the most important practical and ethical dilemma that the palace is now facing. And it is whether or not it is possible to do this while avoiding public show trials and maintaining the monarchy's extended duties. There are hardly any examples that are flawless. Royal families are by their very nature private, and the internal disputes that occur within them are typically kept hidden from public view. When these conflicts do become public, the consequences are quite variable. There are certain disagreements that are quickly resolved, while others become ingrained and have long-lasting consequences on how the public perceives them. Because of the specific historical baggage that surrounds Camilla, which includes the emotional resonance of Diana's memory, the magnitude of the public scandal that occurred in the 1990s, and the pervasive cultural narratives about virtue and transgression, the current episode reverberates more loudly and persistently than many other disputes might. Can Queen Camilla recover from this incident and restore her position within the family as well as the public imagination? Or has the crisis caused damage that is too deep to be completely repaired? This is the key issue that continues to be raised as the tale continues to develop. This story addresses the essence of what the monarchy represents, which is familial legitimacy, historical memory, and moral authority. Despite the fact that the British monarchy has endured a number of scandals, deaths, and political changes over the course of centuries, this particular incident has had a significant impact. Individual histories, conflicts across generations, and the strong and lasting legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, are all intertwined throughout the narrative. The shadows of that past have proved to be far-reaching and tenacious. The issue of whether or not they can be completely eradicated is now one that is fraught with a great deal of ambiguity. In the short term, the focus will be on a number of specific aspects, including the origin of the contested heirloom, a detailed explanation of the sequence of events that took place at Raymil House, and any measures that were taken to guarantee possession of artifacts linked with the deceased queen. If the Royal Collection Trust and the curatorial staff of the palace are consulted, it will be required of them to offer unequivocal answers about whether or not the item in issue is officially a part of the national collection. If it is, the mechanisms of its transfer and any procedural breaches will need to be clarified. At the same time, the family will have to handle the interpersonal aspect, which includes determining whether or not private reconciliation is possible and determining the extent to which public remarks, which are tailored to respect confidences while also comforting the country, are required. The equilibrium of legitimacy and repute within the House of Windsor will continue to be precarious and contentious until those actions are done, and their consequences are evaluated by both the past and the opinion of the general public. In the days and weeks ahead, not only will the endurance of human relationships be put to the test, but also the capability of the monarchy to maintain its position as a center of unity and moral authority in modern-day Britain will be put to the test. As a result of the manner in which advisors, family members, and institutions choose to navigate the overlap of personal hurt, institutional stewardship, and public expectation. The crisis will either become a temporary rupture that can be contained or a longer-lived fault line that will have consequences for the future of the monarchy. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.